This is a special presentation from ABC 3340, April 27th, 2011, 5 years later.
This is a tornado emergency for the city of Coleman at 2:46. Clearly, everybody in downtown Coleman has to be in a safe place right now.
As soon as we went downstairs, that's when all hell just broke loose.
That more than likely could be a debris ball right here, and that is coming right down the highway down toward Hamilton. Every storm today is capable of producing a violent tornado.
I've got to say, I've never seen devastation like this.
We're about a mile from Cordova exit 72. We're looking at what appears actually two tornadoes.
That is something significantly wicked on the horizon of Tuscaloosa.
Goodness gracious. This will be a day that will go down in state history. And all you can do is pray for those people.
April 27th, 2011, a day no Alabamian will soon forget. 62 tornadoes ripped through nearly 1,200 square miles of the state. Many of the storms were the worst kind, violent, deadly, and on the ground for miles. The outbreak is considered one of Alabama's worst natural disasters. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of ABC 3340 News at 6. I'm Dave Baird.
And I'm Brenda LeDunn. Over the next hour, we will reflect on April 27th, remembering the 252 lives lost on that day. The ABC 3340 team is in place across central Alabama, ready to bring you powerful stories of survival, hope, and resiliency seen only in the spirit of Alabamians.
Now, more than a week out, ABC 3340 Chief Meteorologist James Spann was warning that this would be a red-letter day for severe weather across the southeast.
That's right, and with each new model, it became clear, more and more clear, that this was a life-threatening weather system aiming straight at Alabama.
James, I don't ever remember you pounding the table so hard to get the warning out.
The Weather Enterprise did a remarkable job. This is the National Weather Service, the Storm Prediction Center, private sector meteorologists. The event was forecast 5, 6, 7 days in advance. But you never know until the day itself how bad it's going to be. We knew the afternoon and the evening would be very bad. That was a given. The question mark was the morning, and quite frankly, the morning round of storms was more violent than we expected. After the morning storms ended, 5 people were killed and 250,000 people had no power. And the morning storm started while many people were still asleep.
Good morning. I'm Jason Simpson, live in the ABC 3340 Storm Alert Center.
I remember the day very vividly. It's not a day that's just going to fade away even after 5 years.
The National Weather Service has issued a tornado warning for Pickens County and Lamar County until 4:15 this morning.
Got to work, got ready, and watched the squall line come across Mississippi. And then as it moved into West Alabama, we started to really understand just how bad of a day it was going to be.
Oh, is that it? Could that be it? Let's watch the lightning there very closely. It looks like we may have a tornado live on our Skycam here. So if you're in Northport, get to a place of safety immediately.
You know, multiple tornadoes on the ground at the same time. Some of them as strong as EF3 in Tuscaloosa County and Fayette County. And we had damage from just almost every county in our coverage area. So it was a scary moment. And even though this was the first wave, this was one of the more significant tornado outbreaks that we had had in years, just the first round.
It was significant. The first round of tornadic supercells rolled across the Alabama state line in the pre-dawn hours of April 27th, 2011. An EF3 tornado ripped through Coleman in Tuscaloosa County with winds blowing up to 155 miles per hour. Several homes in the town were completely destroyed. Despite touching down while most were sleeping, no injuries or fatalities were reported there. And the tornado continued on the ground, weakening slightly as it caused roof damage to the Mercedes plant in Vance.
And the storm snapped trees and power poles along Interstate 20 in Tuscaloosa County. Several homes in the Tannehill area were damaged. Then the tornado moved into Jefferson County.
And I said, there's no tornado in Kahaba Heights. And when I turned that corner, it was like something I've never seen before.
One of the more memorable morning tornadoes touched down in Kahaba Heights near Gresham Elementary School. Trees and businesses were damaged near Dolly Ridge Road as the tornado crossed over Highway 280.
And meteorologist Charles Daniels shares what neighbors remember about the storm and how they're recovering.
For a few people, the morning of April 27, 2011 started out like any other.
There you go.
Jeff Green, head trainer and owner of Icon Performance in Kahaba Heights, was already working with clients when an EF2 tornado ripped the rest of the community from its slumber.
I remember vividly peeking outside through the blinds, and all I saw was black, and then I saw debris going sideways.
Green is thankful that his business was spared, but his neighbors just across the street were not as lucky.
You peeked around the corner and you saw Crosshaven, and it was literally tree after tree after tree, and then it hit cars and it hit houses and duplexes, and it's like, whoa.
Tyler and Jennifer DiStefano took a more direct hit with several trees crushing their home and vehicles, all while they tried to save their dogs.
Wind, tornado, all in the backyard, and when we went to try to put them in one of the guest bathrooms, the door shut from the outside in, and that was when the tree fell on our house.
After securing their home, it took Tyler almost an hour to walk the few blocks to check on his restaurant, which was thankfully spared.
As we started feeding the emergency medical workers, taking anything that wasn't perishable, I drugged the grill from my house all the way up here. We grilled out and fed people that didn't have food.
The tornado spared the elementary school as well, with only minimal damage to the building.
It would have been terrifying for all of us, you know.
Inez Shinara was one of the first teachers to arrive that morning.
There were people already in the streets from the neighborhoods with chainsaws and, you know, going at it. People were buried in their houses. Kids that were really scared and shook up. Some of them were trapped in their houses and had to be dug out.
The students had to be temporarily relocated while the cleanup continued.
Up here you could see for miles and miles.
Brooke Brown, a third grade teacher at the time of the storm, remembers her first day back.
When we all came back at Liberty Park Middle School, we all came in the gym, and lots of people were crying.
The tornado left a lasting effect on the children.
They were petrified. For a long time after that, when a siren went off for practice or anything, I mean, they would just go to pieces.
And scars remain for the community.
But it's really changed the entire landscape of Kahaba Heights, where it was so wooded and kind of, you know, homey and cozy back here, almost like a little jewel back here for Vestavia. Now it's just wide open, just looks completely different what I grew up with.
While the landscape has changed, most people agree that Kahaba Heights has returned a little stronger and a little more tight-knit.
It's really coming back. It's neat to see, because of that, the development here and the progress that's been made in this community.
In Kahaba Heights, meteorologist Charles Daniel, ABC 3340.
And it certainly looks like this thing wants to come right up here, Jason, in the general direction of Coleman. And they've taken a rough hit this morning, and here comes another one.
Holy! Look at that! Oh my good Lord!
You are looking at a tornado just moments after it struck downtown Coleman. Two ABC 3340 crews took cover as that twister hit. Our own Ebony Hall was among them. She joins us now live from Coleman. And Ebony, tell us about those moments after the storm.
Well, Dave, everything changed that day. You know, you said that the tornado ripped up much of downtown, and it actually took the steeple right off of First Baptist Church. But look at that building today. It stands as a testament that Coleman is rebuilding and has rebuilt and is thriving.
Few will ever forget.
This is a tornado emergency for the city of Coleman at 246.
At the time, a 3340 photographer and I were on 2nd Avenue in Coleman looking for shelter when a man came running out of City Hall. It was Coleman's mayor, Max Townsend, telling us to come inside.
We actually stood outside in the lobby and we saw the tornado coming, and we thought it was actually coming right at us. So I said, let's all get in the vault. And we got in the vault. If I put your hands on your head, it actually hit south of us in the main downtown area.
It was an EF4 carving a path through downtown Coleman, a tornado so strong that it ripped buildings apart, picking up debris along the way and flinging it everywhere.
That there is clearly debris in the base of that.
And when it was over,
holy! Look at that! Oh my good Lord!
No one was prepared to see the destruction left behind. Crumpled buildings, blown out windows, twisted truck axles, mangled power lines, and there was just danger all around.
Over here around the corner, they got a gas leak, some kind of. We got one over here, too. Okay.
Townsend was thankful no one died, but he knew cleaning up the downtown area and then rebuilding would be a long process.
After that tornado, the tornado woke up a sleeping giant, and we became Phoenix Rising.
They were able to repair, rebuild, and thrive. Downtown Coleman looks a lot different today. Over the last 5 years, most of the businesses leveled by the tornado, like Busy Bee, have rebuilt. And now there are new businesses downtown, and Coleman continues to recruit new industry.
This year, we're actually up almost 10% on our sales tax.
Aside from the new growth, the tornado brought the people of Coleman together. From the disaster came a renewed spirit of working together.
It was neighbor helping neighbor, schools furnishing food because they didn't have electricity, churches feeding people. It was a community effort.
And the city of Coleman helped local merchants spruce up their storefronts. They started a facade incentive program, giving those merchants matching dollars for their construction. We're live in Coleman. Ebony Hall, ABC 3340.
And coming up, we're taking you to Tuscaloosa, where a mother and her 2 young sons were directly in the path of a mile-wide tornado.
If I had 1,000 tongues, I could not thank God enough for seeing not just myself, but my children through this.
Next, the one thing that she says protected them as the storm ripped apart their home.
You are looking at a live, large, violent tornado wrapped in rain approaching downtown Tuscaloosa. This is a tornado emergency for the cities of Tuscaloosa and Northport and the campus of the University of Alabama.
5 p.m. on April 27th, 2011. A wicked storm darkened the western skyline of Tuscaloosa. Behind a sheet of rain appeared a mile-wide monster that ripped through Alabama's 5th most populated city. In this aerial video shot the day after the tornado, the devastation is clear. Entire neighborhoods removed from the map, a city's infrastructure mangled, lives torn apart. The Tuscaloosa tornado was on the ground for 80 miles, claimed 65 lives along its path, and injured more than 1,500 people. Now, Alberta is a small community sitting just to the east of the heart of Tuscaloosa. It was one of the hardest hit areas on April 27th. Dozens lost their lives and even more lost their homes. Much of the area was leveled by wind speeds reaching 190 miles per hour. ABC 3340's Jennifer Edwards is live in Alberta tonight. And Jennifer, years later, the storm's scar still very, very visible.
Brenda, this empty lot is all that remains of Marquita Wells' home. Wells and her 2 young boys were inside of their home when an EF4 tornado came barreling down Juanita Drive. Though 5 years have passed, that day is still fresh in the minds of the Wells family.
It was a 3-bedroom home. I mean, a full-size home, and now it's just an empty lot.
An empty lot that serves as a constant reminder of what the Wells family endured on April 27, 2011.
And because there was not a room that didn't have any windows, so we got into the hallway with our blankets, and we were kind of in the door frame to my children's playroom.
With nowhere to go, the Wells family stood, watched, and waited as the wind picked up around them.
And it started to break out all of the windows. So now the boys and I are standing in the hallway in glass with no shoes on. I kind of bent down to comfort them, and the couch that was in the playroom flipped up, where the bottom was up and the back side of the couch made a perfect right triangle against the wall, so it kind of turned into a square cubby hole. And we just stayed there and prayed.
As the storm settled, the Wells family climbed out of what remained of their home to a site they'll never forget.
It was like walking through a war zone. Everything around me was leveled. Every single home had some kind of damage. And at that time, I actually felt blessed that I still have some kind of shelter, that God had sent his angels down and provided a place for us to be safe.
5 years later, and things are much brighter for the Wells family. In 2012, Habitat for Humanity built them a new home just a couple of blocks away.
When you feel like you've been through hell, this is our heaven. Heaven right here on earth. This house was my stability, and it was the first day of the rest of my life.
The home is more than the Wells family could have asked for, but it's a single room in the house that means more than anything.
It's steel. It has 3 locks on it. The door is really heavy because the whole room is steel. This closet is built on its own foundation.
It's a safe room. That means Wells and her 2 boys have a place to go should another deadly storm head their way.
This room for my family represents God's ultimate protection.
Since April 27, 2011, Habitat for Humanity has built 57 homes. 46 of them have been built throughout this area. Live in Alberta, Jennifer Edwards, ABC 3340.
Now, DCH Regional Medical Center in Tuscaloosa is the largest hospital in West Alabama. It escaped the EF4 tornado by just a matter of yards. Now, many working in the hospital that day refer to it as their most defining day. Now, Sharon Oakley is a registered nurse who was working in the emergency department. She says it is forever etched in her mind.
It was the most horrifying thing I've ever been through.
That's Emergency Department RN Sharon Oakley just minutes after the EF4 tornado passed by DCH, and hundreds of injured residents began piling into the hospital.
I hope as close to a war zone that I ever get. That's how I picture it. I said it's got to be like just a war zone. It was almost a sense of it was not real. I mean, it was just hard to believe that this had happened to our town.
5 years later, Oakley still works in the emergency department, now stronger than ever.
It unified Tuscaloosa, and it unified us here as employees. And we, worked together as a team, the whole hospital. But it's still, we still think back, things that happen today, and, that we deal with daily here, we still refer back to that day. And the thing is, we always say, you remember the day, and we all know what the day is.
Oakley says that as Tuscaloosa rebuilds, she's thankful the hospital was able to take care of the community then and continues to serve today.
We said, the Lord had his hands on us that day because he could have wiped us out. It could have just wiped us out.
Now, doctors at DCH say that they treated around 1,000 patients in the hours after the Tuscaloosa tornado.
Amazing. Well, a town virtually removed from the landscape. Ahead, we're taking you to Hackleburg, where one family says they're lucky to be alive.
Everything was just dead when you looked out. Totally dead.
Next, how the Davis family survived winds roaring at more than 200 miles per hour.
The clear message here, if you are anywhere close to between Hamilton and Hackleburg, you need to be in a safe place.
The first EF5 tornado to touch down on April 27, 2011, roared through Marion County, all but leveling the tiny town of Hackleburg. Nearly everything in the storm's path was wiped away or twisted beyond recognition. Now, 75% of the town was destroyed that day, including their only grocery store and both schools.
And Brenda, 18 people killed, another 100 injured. Many who survived the killer storm were in underground shelters. ABC 3340's Melanie Ewell spoke with the Davis family, who literally hung on for their lives.
This is where Kathy Davis and her family rode out the tornado that ripped through Hackleburg April 27, 2011.
My husband came back in there and said the sirens are going off somewhere. Said, you're going to have to come on. So we took off and come down here.
She remembers exactly what she was doing before getting into the storm shelter.
I had bought $72 worth of groceries that day.
And what it was like sitting in the small shelter for nearly 3 hours.
They say it sounds like a train. No, it don't sound like no train. It sounds more like a jet just sitting on top of you. And that's it. You could hear stuff hitting the top of the storm cellar, and I thought for sure that it was going to come off.
Davis's husband and son held onto this chain to keep this door closed and keep them alive as the storms moved through this area. When they did get out here, she couldn't believe what she saw.
Open the door and hear people screaming for help, but it was bad. There was, like I said, it just looked like everything was just dead when you looked out. Totally dead. I wondered how many people were still alive.
Davis says everything in her neighborhood was destroyed, including her family's house. The only item they managed to save, part of their old front porch. Their new home now sits on top of that.
Whenever you don't have nothing left and you're out just picking up pieces, you try to keep everything you can.
Now her house is one of just a few in the neighborhood. Bricks and slabs serve as reminders of where houses used to stand and the neighbors who didn't move back.
It's different, totally different.
5 years after the tornado, Davis says life will never be the same.
It was something. I hope I'd never have to go through another one. I don't wish that on my worst enemy.
In Hackleburg, Melanie Ewell, ABC 3340.
Now, Davis says in addition to homes missing from their neighborhood, all the trees were gone. Before, the trees had blocked the family's view of Hackleburg's water tower. But when the Davis family climbed out of their shelter, they saw that water tower for the first time from what remained of their home. Well, ahead, a quiet valley in St. Clair County rocked by a deafening roar.
You are looking at a live, large, violent tornado wrapped in rain approaching downtown Tuscaloosa. This is a tornado emergency for the cities of Tuscaloosa and Northport and the campus of the University of Alabama.
Running for their lives. Coming up, how one family has picked up the pieces after the storm tore their lives apart.
5 years after the storm's recovery efforts continue after those deadly April tornadoes. Just last week, the Birmingham City Council approved a $1.8 million contract to build a storm shelter in the hard-hit Pratt City community. The A.G. Gaston Construction Company will build that shelter, and when it's finished, the shelter will open in Smithfield Estates Park.
Signs of recovery and hope are also evident in Tuscaloosa. The Salvation Army Center of Hope opened its doors in February. Before opening, the city of Tuscaloosa had been without a homeless shelter since the old facility was destroyed by the tornado on April 27th. The center was rebuilt with funds raised by the community.
A West Alabama man is building the world's first domed tornado shelter. John Johnson owns New Age Dome Construction. Now, he's been building homes that can withstand the powerful winds from tornadoes, and now he's building the first FEMA 361G certified shelter. The structure will have extra layers for support and stainless steel cables to hold it to the ground. During severe weather, Johnson will open the doors to the Duncanville community. Well, a Concord family picked up and thrown from their home.
Something as horrible as this brings out the best in people. And a lot of people just, rushed to help. And I'm very grateful.
Next, their miraculous story of survival as they revisit the site where they almost lost it all.
This is a special presentation from ABC 3340. April 27th, 2011, 5 years later.
Clear call to action. There it is right there. There's your debris ball. This large tornado is coming right up. This is Pleasant Grove, Hueytown, Bessemer, Concord, Rock Creek, Oak Grove. Continues moving steadily to the east-northeast. It's going to take it right into downtown Birmingham.
A neighborhood in Concord was left unrecognizable after the April 2011 storms. Neighbors became rescuers when emergency crews could not reach them.
ABC 3340 Sarah Snyder found a survivor whose story today is a testimony of the love shared by Alabamians. She joins us live in Concord right now. And Sarah, you can still see the path that storm took, huh?
You can, Brenda, and what's now just a grassy knoll on Alpine Street here in Concord once held dozens of homes. But families are starting to come back, trees are coming back, they're starting to rebuild here. But we spoke with one woman, a survivor whose home sat on this property. She told us her life changed forever that day.
Steps leading to nowhere. The evidence 5 years later of lives changed.
This was our house.
A few family photos, a child's book, and 2 small shoes. Kelly Gordon showed us her wall of memories. It's all that's left from their family's home on Alpine Street in Concord.
And you can see there's pretty much nothing there.
It was just all taken across the street.
The Gordons had just adopted their 19-month-old son, Eli, and settled in as a new family. They heard the warning and went to the center of their house, under their bed.
And I just pulled my son as close to me and held on as tightly as I could, and it hit, and it felt like the house, the floor just moved, surged forward and then back, and then the house started rolling.
She says at that point she blacked out. Neighbors later told them they saw the house go up into the air. They were found several yards away, unable to move, buried. Paramedics couldn't get in to help, so neighbors started searching for survivors. They found Eli crying, buried beneath the rubble with multiple skull fractures. Kelly had to be carried out on a front door, a makeshift gurney, to an ambulance waiting on the other side of that debris.
And we both had collapsed lungs and pretty much all of our ribs broken. He had both shoulders broken, broken pelvis. He had a ruptured spleen.
She said she and her husband were in the hospital for days.
And he came and sat down beside me and held my hand, and we both just cried.
Her next-door neighbors, Jennifer and Garrett Jones, didn't make it. Their house totally taken off its foundation. Kelly says 5 years later, the pain from that day is replaced with a gratitude for the neighbors who became rescuers.
Something as horrible as this brings out the best in people. And a lot of people just, rushed to help, and I'm very grateful.
She sometimes comes back here to reflect and to pray, thanking God for sparing their lives and praying for the families of the ones who didn't make it out of the storm.
Sometimes I just come up here and just park in the driveway and just look out over our lot and just thank God for being with us. And yes, he allowed us to get hurt, but then that happened for a reason too. And I'm just grateful, because if you saw the picture of afterward, you'd think there's no way anybody could have survived that, and we did.
And we've got one more amazing story to tell you about the Gordon family. They actually bought a house just down the road from where their original home was here on Alpine Street. Turns out the people that they bought that home from were actually some of the neighbors that helped rescue them that day. So they got to share stories and reunite. So a lot of amazing stories coming out of this Pleasant Grove, Concord area. We're live in Concord tonight. Sarah Snyder, ABC 3340.
Incredible story. Pratt City was also hit hard during that storm system. Many homes there reduced to rubble. We found one woman with an incredible story too. Barbara Jones lives across the street from Bethel Baptist Church in Pratt City. She's a paraplegic and couldn't take cover during the tornado warning. She told her family to get into the bathroom, and while she sat in her wheelchair in her bedroom and prayed, the walls of her home collapsed, but miraculously, she came out of the storm with no injuries.
And the next miracle was when they did get me up and sit me up and raise my hand. There was one of those white angels over there, right in my heart, right on, directly on it. And that let me know that he had me covered.
And I look back at all the devastation around my mom's house. I know it had to be God to bring us this far and to save our lives.
The Jones family has since rebuilt their Pratt City home. They say they're thankful for the volunteers who rushed in to help.
And there's a very well-defined debris ball just north of Raglan. So Raglan to Asheville to Ohatchee to Rainbow City. You need to be in a safe place right now.
The same tornado that came through Tuscaloosa in the western suburbs of Birmingham lifted just north of downtown Birmingham. But the same parent storm dropped another violent tornado just east of Birmingham in St. Clair County. This is that debris ball coming across the Shoal Creek Valley between Asheville and Raglan. 14 people died here, including Al and Angie Sanders. Their 3 daughters, who were home at the time, survived, and this is their story.
We lived there all of our lives, and we had a farm. We had goats and chickens and peacocks. We had any animal that you could name, we had it.
I'll never live anywhere but the country because it's just such a different lifestyle for a child.
Our mom, she was a stay-at-home mom for all of our lives, and she did everything for us.
Daddy worked at the Federal Reserve Bank for 21 years. He was like one of the smartest people you'd ever meet. He had the brains for everything.
What do you remember about the morning of April 27th?
That day, for some reason, I woke up and I went outside and I went and saw all the animals.
I needed some eye drops, and so my dad said, let's go to Dollar General. And we saw my grandmother at the Dollar General, and she told us, she said, make sure y'all were safe tonight. I hear more storms might be coming through.
Yeah, boy, this is bad. Goodness. All right, that's the tornado right there. This is Asheville.
We were all outside on the porch, like listening to the hail and the rain and just everything. And I saw something moving in the air. And then we all ran right to the bathroom. Daddy was like, the tornado just got the garage. And the floor just kind of cracked underneath us. And then we just all rose up and it just flew us.
So you were actually lofted then?
Mm-hmm, we all were. Me and Cecily were flown 200 feet away, and her and Mom and Daddy were flown 800 feet away. I was laying there and I yelled for help, and my sister got up and she came and helped me up. We were yelling for help and we heard our dad yell for help. And so we followed his voice and we found her and Mama and Daddy. And at this point, Mama was already dead and Daddy was laying on his stomach, and he was, his shirt was ripped, and he was just like, go find help. Me and Cecily walked up the hill, and we found our cousin Nick, and he just put us in this truck. There were paramedics that came in, and they were like, are there people who are more injured? And we were like, yeah, go down to our place. And we heard somebody talk on the walkie-talkie, and we heard them say, Albert and Angie Sanders are dead.
Tell me about your parents.
They were married for 25 years.
Daddy would wake me up before school sometimes, and we would just go outside and walk around the ponds.
One of my most fond memories with my mother, we both loved to run, and we trained for 5Ks together.
I honestly feel like it was better that they both died together, because I couldn't ever imagine one of them being without the other.
Tell me about your injuries.
Well, I actually broke 26 bones. The most severe bones that I broke were my neck, spine, and pelvis. My pelvis was shattered. I had 13 surgeries from that.
What's your first memory after the tornado?
Waking up in the hospital was my first memory.
How long was that?
I think it was the end of May.
Who's your friend here?
Well, this is my daughter, Elise. I had her in October 26th, on October 26th of last year. So she's almost 6 months old. I broke 26 bones and now I have a baby.
The only number, Dave, that has mattered to us in the weather community is 252. That's the death toll. We have been so focused on that. That is not acceptable to anybody in the weather enterprise, and it shouldn't be acceptable to the public. But I do think there's a time where we need to celebrate those that are alive.
Right.
And I think that story is a great example of the miracles that came out of April 27, 2011.
And so many stories we're seeing tonight that, you know, it was impacted so many people's lives. I mean, this was such a huge event.
And I think people don't understand that there were 62 tornadoes. You have to stop and think about that. We will never be able to tell all of these stories. It's going to take us years and years and years, but we will work to find them. But again, we will work to make the warning process better so the death toll will never be that high again. Yet at the same time, we do know that some people are alive because of the way the warning process worked, and we do celebrate those lives tonight.
All right. Thank you, James.
Amazing. Well, hit by a 1-2 punch. Coming up next, we're going to Cordova, where the April 27th tornadoes left the community stunned.
Where do you go from your house is literally all across the neighborhood or on your front yard? How do you start picking that back up?
5 years later, we'll show you how the community is working to build back stronger and better than before.
And it certainly looks like this thing wants to come right up here, Jason, in the general direction of Coleman. And they've taken a rough hit this morning, and here comes another one.
Holy emergency as a powerful EF4 tornado took aim on the town of Cordova. Amazing. 5 years after the storm, they continue to recover from the devastation left by 2 tornadoes on April 27th.
4 people lost their lives as the storm ripped through Cordova. Edward Birch is live in Cordova this evening. And Edward, people are remembering those lives lost, but also looking towards the future.
Dave and Brenda, it's a much different site here in Cordova compared to what it looked like 5 years ago, but signs of the devastation and destruction remain. And while progress has been made, many agree that more work needs to be done.
We were devastated by the tornadoes.
Mayor Drew Gilbert will always remember the images of Cordova the days after the April 27th tornadoes. Many of the buildings destroyed along Main Street were vacant. Once they were torn down and removed, the city was given a blank slate.
Now we're at that point where we feel like we can kind of have that renaissance or that rebirth and get back to what it was like when my grandfather was young.
Grant money allowed the rebuild of the Piggly Wiggly grocery store and the building of Cordova's new city hall and police station. Since 2011, Cordova had been operating without a permanent home for its fire department. Their new facility will be completed in the coming weeks.
We've got those destination points built on the corners down here now, and we think that's really going to lay the foundation.
It was mind-blowing to me.
Cordova resident Lauren Vance recalls the emotions of the community in the days following the storm.
It was hard to see everybody, you know, where do you go from your house is literally all across the neighborhood or on your front yard. How do you start picking that back up, and where do you go from there?
As part of the city's 5-year remembrance, this memorial was moved to the city center. Residents have an opportunity to walk by and reflect on the lives lost. Mayor Gilbert says while April 27th will be forever remembered in Cordova, he doesn't want people to focus just on the past, but rather the future.
It's a city coming back. It's a city that understands the direction we're headed.
I want us to be here forever. We'll get there.
And you're looking live at that monument right now in remembrance of those 4 lives that were lost here at the corner of Main and Mill Street. There are several events that are planned here tomorrow in Cordova marking that 5-year anniversary, including the dedication of 2 storm shelters, and they are going to host a candlelight vigil at this monument beginning at 7:15. Reporting live in Cordova, Edward Birch, ABC 3340.
Well, as we continue this remembrance of the April 27th tornadoes, we're going to Calhoun County. Next, a husband and wife literally sucked into the storm.
It wasn't a funnel, it was a wall.
Hear what they saw in those incredible moments and how they lived to tell the story.
We have a possible debris ball that's located right here, and this is US 278 coming out of Gadsden.
There's a confirmed tornado with it now.
Yeah, I believe that.
In Calhoun County, the residents of Webster's Chapel in Ohatchee could not possibly have anticipated how devastating April 27th would be. There were multiple fatalities as the storm roared through.
And people we spoke with say they thought the tornado would miss them, but instead it came straight their way. ABC 3340's Yasmina Alston shares their stories.
Joey George remembers that day as if it was yesterday.
So we decided we were going to stay down there because people might need milk, you know, bread, ice, whatever.
He and his wife Beth finishing up in their convenience store on Rocky Hollow Road in Webster's Chapel.
About that time, a buddy of mine, he's a sheriff deputy. He came in with a sheriff's car and he said, "Joey, y'all got to get out of here. It's on its way."
A storm nothing like George had ever seen.
And it was already up here at the graveyard. It was just like, it wasn't a funnel, it was a wall.
He recalls telling his wife they had to get out, but both knew there really was no time.
So we just kind of held on to each other behind the counter. By that time, the roof came off and the far wall left and the 2 outside walls left. And this wall closest to us was coming in, so I kind of got between it and her and grabbed a hold of her, and we went up in the air then.
George can't say how high they went, but he does know it seemed like an eternity.
And all of a sudden it goes, and lets us go.
In those moments, the two of them traveling hundreds of feet.
There's blood. I got 4 teeth knocked out. Something hit me in the head, and my head just, you could feel the skin stretching, you know. And it's just the grace of God that we're still alive.
George's faith is stronger than ever now, and though he no longer runs a store and his wife suffers from pain still, he says God keeps them going.
You want to live life to the fullest each day. I enjoy life more than what I used to before.
For most people living in the Ohatchee area, life has moved on 5 years after that tornado came through. But for others, it's still a work in progress.
You want a reminder, just walk back there and look at that.
Not too far from Tim Axelton's new Ohatchee home are still many visible reminders of that day.
And we all kind of kicked in and made it.
The most painful one, a handmade memorial for his neighbors, James Romaine and Francis Jones.
Especially Jim. If he liked you, he'd do anything in the world for you.
Axelton has since rebuilt his house. New neighbors have moved in where his friends once were, and life has somewhat moved on. Still, it's a day he'll never forget.
Oh yeah, I mean, I still live it every day because there's still things I look at every day.
In Calhoun County, Yasmina Alston, ABC 3340.
So many heart-wrenching stories.
It's amazing.
Oh, both Tim Axelton and Joey George say their new homes have storm shelters. Still, they hope to never experience a tornado again.
And when we come back,
I could hear unmerciful winds whipping around the air. All of a sudden, a window burst out of our door with incredible force. In a matter of seconds, the storm that changed my life was miles away.
through the eyes of children, what they remember about April 27th and who they're thanking for saving lives in Coleman.
We could hear debris hitting our house. Finally, we could hear the tornado roaring down our street. We got down and prayed.
5 years ago, residents of Coleman were glued to their TVs and radios. They listened to a familiar voice tell them to seek shelter as a violent tornado headed towards their beloved town. Coleman East Elementary School on 4th Avenue Southeast was hit by the EF4 tornado. Thankfully, school was canceled that day. Once the initial shock of the storm wore off, several teachers helped create a booklet of thank you letters written by the 5th graders at EES. Those letters were for our very own James Spann. Now 5 years later, those same students are sophomores at Coleman High School. They've written new letters to James expressing their gratitude for him keeping families safe and ultimately saving their lives.
Dear Mr. Spann.
Dear James Spann. Dear Mr. Spann.
Dear Mr. Spann, as we near the 5-year anniversary of the April 27th tornadoes, I'm reminded that so much has changed in my life and in my community since that day.
I can't believe that 5 years ago the tornadoes hit. I was in Ms. Sharpton's 5th grade class.
A few memories really stand out from my 5 years there, and one of them was the tornadoes.
When I walked in, leaves were scattered about and the overhead projector had fallen in the floor, and the windows were all busted out. To think if I had been in that classroom.
I live right down the road from the Busy Bee and can remember you saying, if you're in between Coleman's Courthouse and East Elementary School, take cover.
That is a large wedge tornado that is coming through downtown Coleman.
That's the house that was flipped around, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was picked up. It was picked up and then turned and like sat back down.
And that is going to be coming out to the northeast.
What you did on April 27, 2011 had a great impact on many of our lives.
Because of your dedication to your job, my brother is still alive.
If I were to be in town or even at my church, I'd most likely have died that day.
Whenever I'm under a tornado warning, I'm more nervous than I should be since April 27th. But I know that if my parents have ABC 3340 on the TV or radio, we will be safe.
In the last 5 years, we have planted trees, we have rebuilt houses, and we have helped build a stronger bond between each other.
As my sophomore year is coming to a close, I'm preparing to go to college. When I think back to that day, I'm very happy to know that we had you as our weatherman to help us get through those tough times.
What would you tell him? I would hug him.
You're a legend.
Love it. I do love him. Now here to join me right now and to present James with a new book of letters 5 years later. The same kids who wrote this book have all written you a separate book. This is Colby, Mary Ashley, and Mallory. They all joined me last week when we did this, and they have something they want to send and say
Here's
to
you.
Here's a book that we've written 5 years later. Thank you for all that you did for us.
That's awesome. Thanks, guys. You didn't tell me. They didn't tell me that we're going to do this, all right? I mean,
and I want to say something personally as well. As a colleague of yours, you also saved my life when I was a junior at the University of Alabama, so I appreciate that as well. And you saved my life and my sorority sister's lives.
old men cry very easily, and I'm just saying, I'm not going to go there, but you're very kind to say that. Thank y'all for coming down. I love the Bearcats. You guys are doing great. How's high school? That's good. That's great. See, I knew them when they were in like 5th grade. So.
Exactly.
But I've been coming to East Elementary for years, but it's always been a joy to visit the kids. And when y'all gave me that book, I stopped. I stopped and read that book when I got out of town a little bit, and I started reading those letters, and I just started crying. I had to put it down. I could not read it until much later. I finally read all of those about 3 months later. So I will read these at a time where I feel strong and ready, but I will read every word that you wrote. So thank you, and God bless you guys.
Well, we thank all of you guys for coming.
Okay.
And that was a complete surprise.
Yes, it was. And James, you're not alone. I think a lot of us really would like to cry a little bit just seeing the images, but also seeing those children that you saved their lives and they're here today because of it. But we want to also thank you for spending time with us, reflecting on what was a day we will never forget, April 27th, 2011. In the losses, we cried together, we prayed together, we worked together to clear away debris and help rebuild.
And the spirit of Alabama rose to meet the needs. People pitched in to help each other, even in some cases when their own homes were destroyed. We thank you again for joining us.